Premier Investments is under fire tonight over its decision to hire disgraced former David Jones boss Mark McInnes as its new chief executive. Corporate governance experts say that it reflects a company which is out of touch with the modern world and has little respect for either its customers or its staff. Andrew Robertson reports.
When Premier Investments Chairman Solomon Lew unveiled Mark McInnes as his new CEO, he tried to reassure investors there'd be no repeat of the former DJ's boss's past.
We've got processes and procedures in place. We always have had them. They're there for all the executives.
But for experts involved in corporate governance, the issue is not that simple.
It sends a message to women that CEOs can behave badly and be quickly rehabilitated. It sends a message that perhaps the customers are not the first consideration for corporate Australia. It sends the message that making profits is more important than ethics.
Ruth Med is a long-time company director and adds that the decision to install Mark McInnes reflects the lack of diversity on the Premier Investments all-male board.
Perhaps they have misunderstood the attitude of some of their customers. Perhaps they haven't understood fully the reputational risk that may come their way as a result of this appointment. Perhaps their governance structure is not really attuned to contemporary occupational health and safety issues vis-a-vis what happened at David Jones.
The University of Technology's Professor Thomas Clarke is blunter. He says Solomon Lew's assurances of high standards of workplace values at Premier Investments are not backed by actions. That's because the company is refusing so far to comply with the Australian Securities Exchange's new guidelines on board diversity.
What you don't want are boys' clubs running companies that are primarily staffed by women.
More than 90% of Premier Investments staff is female, and Thomas Clarke believes there must be change in the Premier boardroom to protect their interests.
But the board must respect the concerns of the public, and one of those concerns would certainly be that there should be women board members on the Premier board to ensure that the highest standards of workplace values and relationships do exist there, as we have been promised they do.
Long-time human resources executive and commentator Avril is also highly critical of Premier Investments directors and says she'd like to ask them all one question.
If this had happened to your daughter in another organisation, would you hire that candidate to run an organisation where you are on the board? Very simple litmus test.
As for Mark McInnes, Avril believes the speed of his return to the CEO ranks is also a concern.
And having worked in this field quite extensively for a number of years, I've always found that behavioural change takes quite some time. You have to challenge the way people think in order to get people to change their behaviour. And if one assumes this behaviour had continued for quite some time, one would have to ask, well, how quickly can that behaviour change?
The general view of those the ABC has spoken to on this issue is that Mr McInnes should have been sidelined for at least a year and then not hired back into a role so similar to the one he was removed from at David Jones.